Senator Blaylock, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. To your point about saving things for the podcast, what I think is really funny, if you ever start a podcast, you learn two things in particular. One, it's not as funny as you think to actually do. Like, it's fun to be on them, but it is not that entertaining to actually like grind through forever. But the other thing you find out really, really fast is that you don't have as many interesting stories as you think.
Well, that's why you bring guests on, right?
That actually is. Yes, that's the point. You have to have a decentralized knowledge base where it's like you think you and your friend always have the funniest things to say, but then you record them and you listen to them. And you're like,
no,
oh, it wasn't that funny.
No.
So like you have to have a variety of guests because like I am a very disinteresting person.
No,
so I need you on.
We've spent the last 30 minutes chatting and it's been really enjoyable. It's
well,
been fun to
good.
get to know
I'm
you.
glad.
Yeah.
So look, you're a senator, you're on ag, you're in health and welfare. There are a lot of things going on in ag this session. We have chicken bills, we have cloud seeding bills, we have immigrant enforcement bills, which are like bonkers. What would you like to start with? You're also on health and welfare. We had the Medicaid expansion reform bill, the repeal bill. Like we have a lot.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot.
There's a lot going on. Chickens. Is that the first one you said? The chicken bill. Again, we briefly talked about this a little bit. I mean, I hated that bill again, just because I'm like, I hate that we have to put in legislation that you can own a damn chicken. Like if you want a chicken, have a freaking chicken. That is the weirdest thing to me. But I understand.
And you grew up on a family farm?
Yes. And you had animals and
then you ate them.
And that's why why is that funny? You are so from California. It's not funny. That's what you do. That's what you do. The best. I mean, we grew up on a family farm. It was more that my parents had 6 kids and they didn't know what to do with us. So they were like, I guess we go out on a farm and then they work it. So it was a very small family farm, but we always had, pigs, chickens, cows, the whole, fruit trees and veg, whatever. And it was great. The pigs, my brother's name is Mike, and all the pigs were Mike 1, Mike 2, Mike 3, Mike 4. That's so rude. Now that I look back, I'm like, that's so rude.
That's great. I would do the same thing.
And even now, we have a cow, and every year the kids name it, and then when we're eating it, they're like, ooh, Aztec tacos, because the cow's name was Aztec, and they enjoy it. It's good. It's good for them to realize where their food's coming from. It's a good thing.
Listen, this is a great thing. I am really, really jealous of that, actually. Like I moved here. I didn't know anything about the area, right? And like I moved up here and we got a house and it was like, great, fine. And I am dying to have like a 2.5 acre like gentleman's farm, because like it would be so great. Like I want a barn.
Yeah.
Do you know Braden Jensen from the Farm Bureau?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he has like a barn that is, he's got like 3 acres or something, and he's got a barn that's on like the historic registry or something. They fixed it up, and it's like this beautiful classic red barn, and he's got like a cow. What's
more American than that? You know what I mean?
Know.
More Idaho than that.
Okay.
But again, on the flip side, I told you my story of then moving into the city during college in Arizona and realizing that dogs, dogs when I grew up, they were farm dogs. They were outside all the time. You never let them in your house. And and going to a friend's house and seeing their dog in their family photo on the wall, I thought it was a joke. But I quickly realized that it was offensive that I was laughing at that. And I learned that, yes, dogs are part of people's family. And that was years ago. And I feel like...
Have you ever met anybody that got the dog, I was going to say incinerated, but it's cremated. Cremated, and then they have the urn of the dog.
No.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I'm not going to make a
Listen,
comment
in my
on that,
former state, people get very attached to their pets.
Yeah.
And there's actually an industry for pet therapists. So if you had a, fluffy little companion that met an untimely or unfortunate end and you felt bad about it, there was actually an industry of medical professionals that were therapists that would help you wrap your head around the loss of your fur baby.
I mean, no wonder California's failing. Right? I mean, what are we even talking about? Anyway, so chickens. Have a chicken if you want it. But again, I understand the the right that people have as neighbors to come together and say like, no, we don't want chickens running around. And so that's why that bill, was put into place, and I supported it. I don't know if it will end up getting passed, but the HOA issue is mainly what that was trying to change. And yeah, for me, I'm just like, I can't imagine coming together as neighbors and restricting something like that, but I don't live within an HOA, so I'm not sure.
I talked to a sheriff the other day, who is sheriff in a very rural area, and he was telling me the number of people over the decades that, because like this is not, I'm not the first former Californian to move here.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm not saying I'm a native Idahoan, but like don't call me a Californian anymore either, because and not that you did.
No.
I'm just like, I obviously, like, I'm all in, man. Like, I burned the ships.
No, you're the California that we want.
Okay, great.
That you're accepting the culture. You want the barn and the cow.
I'm trying to understand, like, what's going on. I go to the Star Cafe all the time.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
But he was telling me about people. He was like, this one gal, I guess, decade back or something, moves here, and the people drive by, or excuse me, like ride bikes or drive by or something with guns. And she calls the sheriff flipped out, and he's like, yeah, those are farmers that are likely like chasing out coyotes or predators, or like
saw some turkeys.
They're going to hunt.
Yeah.
And this woman's like, well, I don't feel very safe here. And he's like, listen, every rooftop you see here, I guarantee you at least 3 guns live there. So like, if you don't like it, she's like, well, we need to do something. And you're like, yeah, we aren't going to be doing anything.
Interesting.
And there was another gal who, in a similar fashion, moved in sight unseen into the area and happened to live directly across from a feedlot. And she literally, like, apparently didn't know until she purchased the house that there was a feedlot across the street. And she instantaneously started going to planning and zoning and trying to get these things revised. I was like, what are you doing?
No.
You moved, like, this feedlot has been here for like 80 years and you just moved in and you're trying to like get it run out of business. God bless those people.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I love that for you, not for me.
I know. Yeah, that's tough. That's
a tough one.
Yeah.
So the chicken bill is one of those interesting things. Do you think we'll get back? Like, do you think that's a function of people, like just our society in general, or do you think that's more a function of people, like the way we're constructing things and building our communities with, really strong HOAs, and then people saying, hey, look, I moved here. This is the only house I could buy. Yeah. I moved here to have a different life experience. Like, can you help me revise this?
I almost wonder, and I don't know a lot about HOAs. I almost wonder if we like go upstream from the chickens or that we've done this with like flags and campaign signs, whatever. Yeah, right. But go upstream and see what rules do we have on these HOAs and how they can assemble? And maybe there's parameters you can put in place where it's not, because we had some people come testify and they're like, here's all of the things that we have to do in order to change a rule on our HOA. And it was pretty impossible for some of these large neighborhoods, So maybe it's like going upstream and seeing how can we make it a little bit easier so it's not this massive process to make one change. If everybody, if you have a majority of your neighbors that want chickens, that you're easily able to make that, whereas before it was like, I mean, somebody went through the rules and it was like majority, and then you have to get like these signatures, and then you have to have a meeting, and then you have to, and then it's like, then it has to be 3 months. And anyway, it was like this
people
whole
still
process.
Have to vote on it.
And it was like, that seems crazy. That seems crazy. Like neighbors should be able to come together in your little neighborhood meeting and like, do we want it? Yes, no, and then move on,
Well, the one other problem with HOAs that I think was addressed in the last legislative session, or at least somebody brought it up, was, okay, look, there's a development near where I live called Avamore, right? And that's part of Eagle. Avamore has, I think, something like 800 homes right now or something like that. And it's slotted to have like 30,000. Like they're essentially going to make like another city up the hill. And what's interesting about that is that until the HOA is substantially completed, the residents will not have a position on the HOA board. Like they won't have representation. So for the next 30 years, as this place is getting built out,
it's just the builder
controls everything about the HOA. So you could have people that are living and dying there like over the next 30 years, people retire and they like pass out of existence and never even have local control over their own HOA.
Yep. So that's what I mean. Like, I wonder if we go upstream and see if there's something there that could fix some of this, right? Rather than doing these one-off
like little patches.
Little patches. Yeah. So anyway.
So aside from chickens,
Mm-hmm.
we are now in a state of our country where people are like putting death threats against meteorologists and thinking that there is this wide scale capacity to manipulate weather to the degree of like hurricanes, tornadoes. I'm sure somebody thinks earthquakes, you know, like all of these different things. And cloud seeding is one of those things that has come up. It is something that has a long history in the state of Idaho. There are very specific ways that you can cloud seed. There are very specific chemicals and mechanisms you can engage. All of these things, it is overseen by the state, like all of this stuff going on, but people are getting very anxious about it because of largely things they've seen on social media. Like we don't have a bunch of amateur meteorologist clubs that have popped up and they're like, actually, I don't think that's the right kind of cloud. Or but like the thing that kills me is when people talk about seeing trails behind planes in the sky. And then they're like, and it turned into a cloud, and that's evidence of cloud seeding or some kind of nefarious.
Quite the opposite.
Right.
Yeah. So there's two things: the cloud seeding, and then you have the chemtrails. Chemtrails, I can't follow. Let's not even. I don't even know. I don't know what that is. Cloud seeding, on the other hand, is real. We have been doing cloud seeding in the state for, since decades.
The 50s, yeah.
Well, it's been around since the 50s. Yeah, I think that Idaho's first,
first operator. And that wasn't a statewide operator, but that was somebody in the state of Idaho doing cloud seeding.
And so weather modification can happen. Obviously, cloud seeding is a form of that, right? You can put something into the air that then makes the molecules come together and then it rains down more.
Right.
And so this has been happening for a long time. Where I have a hard time with some of the information, because people do get very fired up about this, they'll send me like these reports of well water tests, at different labs and stuff.
Sure.
And it shows, let's say, like aluminum.
Right.
I have Idaho Power came and did a full report for the Ag Committee. I suggest anybody that this is an important subject for them, go and watch that. It was about an hour and there were lots of questions. I asked questions that many people have sent to me with concerns. Where there's no correlation between what they're putting in the seed or what they're putting in the cloud, which is silver iodine.
Right.
And as the tiniest amount, just the tiniest amount, right? That somehow magically turning into aluminum that's being found in the water.
Right. Or boronium, whatever it is.
Yeah. There's no chemistry, it
doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. And then I always have to remind these people, you do know that our Earth's crust is made from aluminum. Like this is a natural substance that's in our water at different rates, right?
Like I have arsenic reports in my water system. It's like, did somebody put arsenic into my... No, it's like this is a naturally occurring substance.
Exactly. So that's a weird jump for me, but I get it a lot. Emails that people are like, you got to look at this, the aluminum in the water. I'm like, I don't think I don't think cloud seeding is the source. And cloud seeding, when we had that presentation from Idaho Power, because obviously they run the largest operation, because they have an incentive to create more snowpack up in the mountains,
right?
Because it causes more power as it comes through their dams.
Yeah, we get hydropower.
Yeah, which is amazing for Idaho. Hydropower, we are so lucky to have that. And they have lots of studies that show anywhere from 10 to 20% increase in that snowpack. So, I'm an Idaho girl. You're talking about too much water? Like, that's a problem I'd love to have, you know?
Right.
So if you're showing 10 to 20% increase on snowpack, and the water that we get to keep in the state, I'm not going to be the one that pulls the plug on that, No,
absolutely. Yeah. And not only like, let's pull the plug on everything that's bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Just help me and don't show me a well water report. The thing that gets me, again, the well water reports, it's like, okay, fine. Like you have a report and it says that there's some aluminum in your water. Okay. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because you go from there is aluminum in the ground here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To we have to stop cloud seeding.
Yeah.
Now, if there's a step in between there, and if you can illuminate that step, hell yeah, man. Like let's go.
I asked Idaho Power that, and I said this might be the dumbest question I asked in all of the legislature, because I knew. I've done some research. I want to be a good steward of these people, constituents, that this is a genuine concern. And so I asked them that. Is there any way that what we're putting in the clouds to get more snowpack, is there any way, any process that it could go through to turn into this? No. And the guy that was there was a chemist and explained to me that no, ma'am.
No.
And I'm sure he just thought like, this is who is representing our state.
Yeah, that's not fair though, because
know,
that's not fair for you to like. That's listen. People don't know.
Yes,
right? Like,
and I wanted to just ask the question as the information's being presented to me. I wanted to ask it clearly so they had the chance to say no, right? And then now it's all on record. But I don't know. I don't know if it will help. I don't know. I mean,
well, this is the thing. I keep talking about this, and I keep. By the way, people get real mad at me. And I always invite them onto the show.
Yeah.
Bring everything. Yeah. I live here. My children live here. Yeah. My wife lives here. Like, I want a safe environment. Yes. And if there's somebody polluting my environment, like I live near a my backyard backs up onto a field, like a functional ag field. Okay. And there was a drone spraying some stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, drone spraying some stuff. Okay, I don't know what he's spraying. And my neighbor, who's suffering through some health issues, she and her husband weren't happy about it. Like, hey, what is the guy spraying? Yeah, right. And the guy was like, honestly, like, I actually don't have to tell you what I'm spraying. Like, I don't have to divulge all this stuff to you. And my neighbor wasn't happy about it. And I understood why he wasn't happy about it. Again, his wife's suffering through some health things. But ultimately, it's like, listen, I'm sympathetic to that. I'm not telling him, hey, there's no reason for you to be concerned. I was like, I understand 1,000%. Yeah. What I have failed to understand is how people say, this is this terrible thing. We know it's happening. And I say, where, when, who, I'll make them famous. Like, if there is somebody you can point to or some program, and they always say, well, it's like, it's the deep state.
I know.
It's like, well, then we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Like if it's somebody breaking the law, first off, passing laws to stop this is not going to do anything, right? Like passing, well, I won't bring up gun control, but like you have these problems. And again, I want to know. I want to know the best possible way to keep my family safe and as well as bring as much water to Idaho as possible. Yep, totally. Man, what a wild thing.
I know. Well, we did have a presentation from the group that does all the water testing, and they're over all the different water testing. Yeah. And I did ask him, do you drink tap water or bottled water? And he drinks tap water. So let everybody be at ease. That the guy that's responsible for making sure our water's safe, he's drinking it. He's not going out and buying bottled water. So we've got clean, safe water in Idaho.
Right. And look, I have a water filtration system because my HOA puts a dump truck of chlorine into the water, which I'm not a huge fan of. And it's incredibly hard. Yeah. Like we have, our water's like crazy hard, right? So we had to get like this water softener, then we got a whole house filter and like whatever, get like the coconut husk filter. It doesn't matter. But like, I'm not worried about the aluminum. No. Like, I'm more worried about the arsenic.
But it's real for these people that have concerns. I would encourage them to go watch that presentation because it was enlightening, and everybody on that committee had a lot of questions, and we didn't hold back, so it was good.
You want to know what one big problem is? Okay. I told Senator Nichols about this. When people talk about programs that are dimming the sun, because that's what they generally talk about. You actually can't say that these don't exist because I found a guy by the name of Luke.
Okay.
And Luke, I told Senator Nichols about this. Somebody sent me this. He was really worked up. And it was a picture of an application to dim the entire sun worldwide. And I was like, what is this? And at the bottom, there was a phone number. And it was just a picture of an application off of social media. Okay. And I was like, did you call this guy? He was like, no, I wouldn't call him. And I realized the phone number is a 415. I was like, I know 415. So I literally texted the guy. I was like, is this Luke? And Luke responds, this is Luke. Okay. Luke is part of, I think, a 2 or 3 man team living in like Luke's mom's basement. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he made this organization that you can donate to actually today. If we want to, we could go on right now and we can donate. And what Luke will do is if you donate like $100, Luke will take like a sandwich baggie of sulfur, whatever, and attach it to a weather balloon and let it go up into the sky and slowly dim the sun with the sandwich bag of sulfur, whatever he has. This is an actual thing. You can donate the $100 for somebody's birthday and they'll send them a note like you helped dim out the sun. And this is Luke in like North Carolina doing this. And people are like, see, there are organizations dimming the sun. No, it's like, it's a dude in his mom's basement.
With a weather balloon that sends it up. Interesting.
I gotta find this
love that.
picture
No,
for you.
I watched a whole documentary on the dimming.
Oh, did you see the dimming?
Yes,
that
I
actual?
did,
Oh my God, it
yes.
was so great.
Yeah, it was
Okay,
interesting.
this organization is called Make Sunsets. Okay, this is Luke and his buddy.
Yeah, that's Luke.
No joke, with a weather balloon, with a sandwich baggie.
Yep.
And you can donate. You can
can't.
act now and donate. Join the action, and you can donate to these people. You can even buy merch. They have merch. We should get merch. Next time you come on, we should have hoodies and stuff. It's the Make Sunsets.
Out of all the things
Listen to
going
me.
on, I can't that we're talking about.
Okay, look, limited edition, first U.S. stratospheric aerosol injection balloon pieces. Okay, so you can buy pieces of U.S. weather balloons. Like, I love this man so much. Anybody wants to check it out, it's makesunsets.com.
He's cooling the earth.
He's cooling the earth. And this is
one little weather balloon at a time.
one sandwich baggie. And this is the thing. People see this and they don't dig deep enough into it. And they're like, oh my God.
So the original person was like, look at this organization. See, there's organizations doing this.
Yes.
And then really it's
and
just,
then if you dig in, you realize it's a dude with a bunch of weather balloons in his mom's
organization
basement.
is generous. Got it. Yes.
Exactly. And but what Luke did is they put out this social media post, which was a copy of this application to operate. And it literally said, like, dimming the sun worldwide. And that post got tens and hundreds of thousands of views, and people were so upset. And in reality, what I told this guy instantly, it was like, first off, I found the form, because the form had a number on it. It's like it's an actual form. And I was like, okay, first off, I could fill this out right now and write the exact same things, take a picture and get a lot of people upset. I was like, second, this has a phone number. Like, why don't we just call this guy? So I called the guy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of anxiety around this. There are people that say there are organizations. You cannot say there aren't organizations that are dimming the sun, but when you dig in, it's really like Luke in the basement.
Luke in the basement.
Right. And like, that's not a reason for people in Idaho to get upset.
No, I don't think
Luke's
so.
not even in this state. I would
Yes.
love to get Luke on a podcast. And
You
be like,
have to,
tell
actually.
me about this.
You've given him quite the promotion already. So, I mean, he kind of owes you at this point. He's got to come on.
You know what my issue with Luke is? I'm like, listen, Luke, you got your shtick. Like, I understand I pollute and you're polluting. Like, no problem. But have you ever thought about, like, what if you're wrong? Like, have you conceptualized, like, what if you're wrong? Like, and I know you're from Northern California and you feel very convicted about this, but like, what if you're wrong?
Well, what's the worst he's doing? He's just putting an extra cloud up in the sky.
Well, there's not even a cloud. It's a sandwich bag. That sandwich bag full of sulfur, whatever, is not going to produce a cloud. It's literally particulates that
reflect back.
Ultimately, what you're doing is you're poisoning people in northern latitudes, right? Because what happens is,
Have you said that to him?
No, I haven't. That
would be funny. That's what you should do.
I have a sister, an adopted sister, who's actually an Inuit, like Native Alaskan. Okay. Native Alaskans have huge problems with their endocrine systems because pollution goes from the equator and tends towards the poles, because you have a lot of heat at the equator. Okay. That causes a ton of precipitation. Think rainforest, right? Humidity goes up, right? So all this water rises, and then as it tends towards the poles, it cools down and then falls down. And then the same thing happens over and over. So all of this particulate matter essentially does these leapfrogs tending towards the poles, because it goes up and then comes down.
Can they go out and like see it, like in the snowpack or anything?
Like, you can test different latitudes, and you'll see increasing concentrations with like a linear progression, but then it's actually not linear, because you don't have the same land mass as you tend towards the pole. So you have this hyper concentration of people and like even animals like polar bears and stuff that are getting all this matter that's coming from the equator and moving up. It's like, ultimately all you're doing is you're poisoning people that live in like higher latitudes.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I should tell Luke.
Yeah, you need to have him on and then just like hit him with that question and see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of health, again, the last committee you're on is health and welfare, and this is a big one. Like we had Medicaid expansion repeal right out of the blocks with Representative Vanderwoude. Then we had Medicaid expansion reform, which also had a repeal piece to it. And now we've arrived at Medicaid expansion, just reform, like modification, without the 11 waivers required. We do have some kind of work requirement that's pretty generous. We have, hospitals and whatnot on board. Talk to me about this last revision.
I think this is,
You moved away from the mic. Come back to the mic. Come back.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Slide to the right. Slide to the right. There you go.
It's kind of a weird. Okay.
I need to take the wheels off these chairs because people like start.
I know it's so weird. It's a little disorienting. Yeah. I think this is the right. I think this is like, porridge too hot, too cold. This is like right in the middle. I think this is a good bill. I mean, really, if I had to write a Medicaid expansion reform bill, it would be this. I don't support a full repeal of Medicaid expansion just because in my previous life, I was at a technology startup within the healthcare space. So I kind of understand the industry from like a vendor point of view, like trying to drag it along into the 21st century. And so my heart goes out to hospitals and care providers because they're so overly regulated, and they care for people when and they don't ask questions a lot of times before. So you think about this population that Medicaid expansion is caring for. If you just repeal it, that population doesn't just go away, right? And so then I think, okay, where are they going to go? They're going to go back to the ER, and then who bears that cost? And you're not going to come in with a heart attack and they're going to be like, okay, and do you have insurance? Like, you know what I mean? No, they're just going to treat you, and then they have to eat that cost. The hospital does, because prior to Medicaid expansion, we had the state catastrophic fund, we had county indigent funds to help cover that cost, and we don't have those programs anymore because we replaced it with Medicaid expansion. And so I really think that if we just were to repeal without a clear idea of what it's going to be replaced with, you'll see hospitals, especially rural hospitals, that just are going to close up.
Right.
So that feels irresponsible to me, but at the same time, it feels equally as irresponsible to watch the growth in spending within Medicaid expansion and just be like, oh, that's okay. No, I think everybody agrees that there needs to be better parameters around who can be on the program, and just some common sense things. I mean, the work requirement is a no-brainer.
Right. The work requirement's like you can be volunteering, you can be going to school, you can be going to online school. Like anybody, we could be going to online school right now. Let's sign up right now.
No, I mean, I would hope that there's some verification,
Oh, sure. You have to be taking a certain number of credits and stuff.
And so I think that's a good step. Right now, people are just auto-enrolled back into Medicaid. And so just stopping the auto enrolling, I mean, that's in this bill, the 345. So that makes sense, right? Because you're going to have people that start new jobs or they get a new position and their benefits include insurance now. And unless you're calling Medicaid, health and welfare and saying unenroll me, it's just going to auto enroll you. So I think that will help. And I mean, there's a couple other things I probably would add to it, but I think this is a great step for where we're at today, to hopefully just kind of stop the growth in spending. And then, I wouldn't be against a repeal in the future. I would like to hear or understand what the plan would be after repeal.
Right. Everything should be on the table, right? Like that's, and again, to your point, that's really important. Like, listen, we can repeal this. Mm-hmm. Like, you're not categorically against repeal, but you need to replace it with something so that the burden of this care and the cost of this care doesn't fall back on the average Idahoan again, because with the indigent funds and, the catastrophic care funds, even the hospitals eating costs, ultimately that plays out in the cost of medical care. And then the state has to reimburse some portion of we have all of these things where the Idaho taxpayer is actually picking up the bill. So it's like, hey, all good. Like, we can skin the cat however you want, as long as we get it skinned and we make sure that we're not putting the burden on these other people.
Yep. And the hospitals, I mean, they're businesses. Right. They have to make money.
Right.
And so you're exactly right. If they have to eat those costs, and the only place now that they're making money is off of insured people, then those prices are going to go up, because that's the only way that they can make up for what they've lost here. So yes, somebody either that or they shut down. Both are not great solutions. So it's tricky. It's a hard one. It pulls at my heartstrings, the whole subject. I just want to make sure the people that are on it are using it properly.
Right.
And that it is kind of a last resort and a way for them to move into private insurance where
Right. It should be a safety net, not a way
yes,
of life.
yes, exactly. Yep.
And I'm not totally up to snuff on this, but I saw something just the other day that was talking about there's a lawsuit going on against the state of Idaho with regard to women's reproductive care and whether or not the position that Idaho is in and its women are in at this point is legal, like within the federal definitions of the thing. Are you familiar with this?
Well, I think I just saw a headline that it was dropped, right?
Okay, so the lawsuit got dropped.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, don't quote me on that because I just read the headline. I didn't read the article.
Look at us, two
I
educated
know.
people.
My gosh. You know that one SNL skit where it's like the two people that like, did you hear? But they don't actually have any facts. Like that's how I feel right now. But I did see that headline. So I don't know. I'll
have to check it and dig deeper into it. I was just thinking about that. I mean, and again, we have to figure out a way to, however we want to skin the cat, okay, however you want to do it, we need more medical professionals here. We need to make a better regulatory environment to attract people here. And I'm not saying we change any women's reproductive laws, but like we need a better environment.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. So out in Caldwell, we only had one maternity ward at our one hospital out in Caldwell, and we're growing out in that area, right? Like crazy. They just shut down a year ago, our one maternity ward, because they couldn't find enough.
They can't staff it.
Right. So that kind of, prior to that, I kind of thought it was just hyperbole and like, there's a small group saying that doctors don't want to work here. I didn't truly think that there was a problem. But once that happened, I kind of dug in. I read the law as it is written, when it comes to women's reproductive rights. For me, it seems clear. If I were a doctor, this seems clear that you can treat a woman and be able to and do it within a way that you feel good and they feel good, but we're also respecting life, right, of the baby. It seems as if, from what I've heard from doctors, they are required to carry medical insurance, right, to practice. And within medicine is like the most litigious industry. Right. And then within that, maternity care is the most litigious within medical. So you're talking about OBGYNs, like if something happens during a delivery, let's say, and your baby dies, like those are the ones that they sue, right? Right. So they really rely on this medical insurance. What they're saying is that medical insurance companies won't cover them the way the law is written now, right? But then I've heard conflicting. It's hard for me to know. It seems we have a problem because I see the data. We're down 20%. That was the last I heard, and supposedly there's of OBGYNs in the state. So that's a fact. I mean, that's just numbers. Right.
In a very specific time frame. It's not like we're down 20% from 2015 and it was a slow slide. It's like, no, 22. From 22 until now, we're down roughly 20%.
And then you look at the growth of our state. So that doesn't equate. We should be increasing that number.
And obviously the other issue too, I had Brad Turpin on, who is the CEO of the Emmett Hospital. And they also shut down their labor and delivery, right? And
that's right. Yeah.
His position was a staffing issue, but he wasn't even going at it from an OBGYN. He's like, listen, maybe the legislation, sure, like fine. But he was just saying, look, if you're going to deliver babies, you have to do it well, and you have to do it 24 hours a day. Yeah. And there is no point when you can be like, it's like, you good at nose jobs at your hospital? Like, probably pretty good. It's like, no. We're good. Yeah. We're pristine. We're perfect. Yeah. Right. And he said, not only that, you have to have a surgery center open 24 hours a day, ready to go at a moment's notice. Because when a delivery goes sideways, you need that kid out instantaneously. Yeah. So you need everyone involved, and you need these people involved at the top of their game, ready to go, happy to be there. And he said, if you just take one of the pieces of this, if you take like a labor and delivery nurse, if you have a labor and delivery nurse that came out of school and's like, all I want to do is deliver babies. Like, this is going to be awesome. He or she is all in. The problem is, Brad can't attract them to the Emmett Hospital for labor and delivery, because he said, look, if all you want to do is deliver babies, you can come here and you will deliver some babies. But the rest of the time, because we're a rural hospital, you're going to be in the emergency room. You're going to be.
Is that why he said they closed down?
He said one of the reasons is that just finding people that want it. Like, we're in a national shortage of nurses, right?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is that even trying to staff labor and delivery nurses, if you're a labor and delivery nurse and that's what you want to do, you're going to go somewhere where that's what you can do all day long. You're not going to go to the hospital where it's like, yeah, you'll get to do that 40% of the time. The other 60%, you're not going to be able to actually be engaging in this. You're going to have to fill in gaps in other places. Like, so we don't have a lot of like emergency surgery needs 24 hours a day in an Emmett hospital, but we have to have the surgery center open 24 hours a day, right? For labor and delivery. Plus they were dealing with like traveling nurses and everything, just trying to fill these spots. And he's like, it's ungodly expensive.
It is.
Yeah. So it's not just the legislation. Like, yes, the legislation is a piece, but you also have compensation. You have a shortage of these other supplemental pieces. And it's like, what do you do?
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That is interesting.
What do we do? What do we do?
Well, hopefully we can do something.
We do something. We have, I mean, it sounds like that there are people, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and there are things in the works, which is great, where it's like.
Yeah. And the traveling nurses, I mean, that was kind of, I mean, there's always been like agency staff within healthcare. COVID though really kind of exploded that whole industry. I really hope that pendulum swings the other way, because it is so expensive. And you just think of like, I don't want to call them temp staff, but but kind of, and they just don't have the same like buy-in, you know, of like whatever your hospital culture is. And, you know, so it's really disruptive to operations and then the care that's provided. And I hope that kind of goes away.
I have a crazy relative who's a traveling doc.
Okay.
And she lives in a Sprinter van with 5 dogs and travels around like 10 days at a time.
Wow.
With her 5 dogs.
I mean, you lost me at the 5 dogs. I think I could have gone. I think
she's in a Sprinter van with 5 dogs. No joke. And I was like, that can't be real. And she was seeing a relative close by, staying there. I'm like, I got to go over and see
bless
this.
her
So
heart.
I go over, and I'm walking up to the house, and there's the Sprinter van, and I look over, and they're like these dogs, like at the window, like,
help
take
me.
And these are not small dogs. Like, one is a husky. Like, could you imagine having a husky in a Sprinter van? Because when she goes to work, where do you think that dog is? The dog's in the van all day.
Yeah. And
Could you imagine going to a hospital somewhere that relied on like traveling? The smell.
I'm just going to stop. But I do think that it does sound fun. A Sprinter van and just traveling around. I mean, that sounds fun.
Yeah, the van life. I don't think you could get your hair like that on a regular basis, though. The van life does not. Like, didn't you see that Sex and the City episode when they took the train from like New York to somewhere else, and they were like trying to get dressed up on the train, and like Samantha and what's her name, Carrie, were like look disheveled and crazy because they're like doing their makeup in a train bathroom. Like, a train bathroom is bigger than the traveling van bathroom.
I know,
I'll tell you that much.
I could get there. You lost me with the dogs. So it's a little much.
Right. No animals.
Yeah.
No animals other than a fish tank.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're probably going to eat the fish anyway. You would eat the fish for sure. You would eat all your
What
pets.
else is it for? Why do we have it? What else is it for?
Did you see that movie Fish Called Wanda?
No.
Back in the day, Kevin Kline?
No.
What is wrong with
I'm
you?
sorry.
It was such a great movie. You should watch it tonight for sure.
Wanda.
Yeah,
Okay.
this guy eats fish.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
I will
you
watch
relate
it,
to eating
but just
the
know I
pets.
only judge people on their recommendations, books or movies. So
Okay,
this will be the only
Fish
thing
Called Wanda.
All right, if you're
great
ready to
film.
put your name on it.
There's Fargo, another great film.
Yes,
Frances
yes,
McDormand,
yes,
fantastic film. I don't know what's your recommendation for a movie?
I'm not a big movie person.
Okay, what's your recommendation?
The only
for
time
a book?
I get to the movie,
I would say Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh gosh, I have read that, but no. I am a recommendation for a book. Well, I have so many. I take my recommendations very seriously. What kind of books do you like? And then I'll give you a recommendation based on your
listen
category.
to me. I like people. I like everything.
Okay.
I like
love a good
fantasy. I like sci-fi. I like
All right.
nonfiction. Like
I'm a nonfiction. Like I love a good biography, like a story that you're reading and it sounds fake, but it's real. Like that's my favorite. So I would say a good one like that is Unbroken. Have you read that one? Zamperini, the guy that in World War II. Have you read that one?
Yep.
That's a fantastic book.
It's a wild book.
It's a wild book, and it's just so well written. Like you read it and you're like laughing and then you're like crying. I mean, it's so well, it's just a great story. A great story. Don't watch the movie. Read the book.
Yeah, I refuse to watch the movie.
Yeah.
I've not.
I watched it and it was disappointing.
You knew it was going to disappoint.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. But I appreciated that book because there was an aspect of just letting a person be like a wild person and like what comes of it and the incredible things that come from it. It's like he's growing up, obviously, like without a lot of guidance, all these things. It's like he becomes this wild, competent, ferocious human. And I think the direction away from wild humanity, like that was the whole, like I watched Beauty and the Beast the other day with my kids, and you come back to that, like, oh, there is value in being this like wild animal. Totally. And there is like you're rooting for the beast at the end of the movie. And you're like, be the damn beast again. Because he gets domesticated and then hurt. And then he like loses his will to live. And then Gaston comes to kill him. And you're like, be the beast.
Oh my gosh,
right?
this
like
is deep. You took that to another level.
It was what? Yeah. That's the whole point of that book, that story, which is you have this unruly, hyper capable, undomesticated man who finds this woman who's strong enough to show him the inherent value, not browbeat him or show him rules, but bring the inherent value of coupling with another person. But it's like, we can be friends. Yeah. We can be more than friends, but you can't be this way. And he ultimately finds his way to being like, this is the right thing to do. But then she leaves because he lets her go. And then he's like broken. He's like, this was the point in me living. Like, what's the point in me living anymore? And then the bad guy comes to kill him and he's like given up. And then he sees Belle and he's like, oh, I'm gonna be the beast again. And you're cheering for him the whole time. So, like and that like the aspect of Unbroken that was like this ferocious, unbridled human that becomes this incredible force. Yeah. Except it was a real story. Yeah. God bless him, man. What a book. Yeah. You should read Lonesome Dove.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Oh, classic old school book.
Okay.
But I really appreciate Lonesome Dove in this age of our society because Lonesome Dove was essentially this story about these two former Texas Rangers who were like turned cattle rancher in Texas. And they were like really bad at cattle ranching and like they're just fumbling along. It's an unsuccessful endeavor and they like marginally make money and then they do this big cattle ride. But the point is that these two people had this incredibly important place in the world in the domestication of Texas because they were these Texas Rangers and they would chase the Comanche out and they brought civilization to Texas, right? And kept people safe. But once they had done that, they didn't have a place in the world because they were like, okay, we don't need the Texas Rangers anymore, right? So like, what value do you have? And I think a lot of people are coming to this phase of life of, wait, I did this thing. And this thing is no longer relevant. And we're going to experience that with the integration of technology. And
finding new purpose.
That's right.
Finding new purpose.
What is your value now in this world that no longer values your skill sets?
Well, that's like the Jonathan Haidt. His books, his first one, the Coddling of the American Mind, he talks a lot about that, of like our younger generation not sure where their purpose is, right? And like how men serving in military and how much purpose that gives them, and that's how they become who they are and how they determine what their principles are. Right. And
that was the whole point of Fight Club.
Yeah.
The film. You didn't see Fight Club?
I've never seen it.
What is wrong with you? Fight Club?
The only time my husband can get me to a movie is if the popcorn sounds good.
Fight Club was from 1998.
I've heard of it. What happens in Fight Clubs? Oh wait, that's Vegas. What happens?
Listen,
we don't talk
number
about
one rule: we don't talk about Fight Club.
That's what it is. I was like, there's some saying what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club.
That's Vegas. We are just two fantastic people today. Listen to me. Okay. Senator Blaylock, you're the best. Thank you for coming.
This has been fun.
This has been great. I know it's a working day.
We talk a lot about policy.
We did.
I mean, a little
Chickens,
bit.
Cloud seeding.
The important things.
The important things. Chickens and cloud seeding.
We did get to Medicaid expansion. That is
Listen, you got to have a good time along the way. We don't have to stop. You know what the problem is? If we were all policy, 0 people would listen.
That's true.
We have to have fun.
That's true. Let's just talk about books. That's all I want to do anyway. There are days that I'm just in committee and I'm like, I could be home reading a book right now.
Okay, listen, when you're done, you live close by. When we're done with the session, let's do an episode on your favorite, on like a couple books we like.
We go by category. I'll give you, I'm a huge reader. It's my favorite. That's all I want.
I love that. Did you read any, did you read any of the Game of Thrones or anything like that?
No, I'm not. Okay. You're not a fantasy person. Not a fantasy person. Cause I'm like, well, anybody could make this up. Like, I want to hear something.
Is that true? Can anyone make it up?
I don't know. I just like something that, I love a good story, but it's got to be real. That's the part that gets me, I know.
God bless you.
I know.
Listen, thank you for coming in. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
Thanks for what you're doing for Idaho, and hang in there. We're almost done.
Awesome.